Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Cha Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudire Nashtapraesha Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttam Shloke Bhavati Naishtiki. So continuing with the discussion on Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 11, Chapter 11, the symptoms of conditioned and liberated living entities. Text 26 onwards. Shri Uddhava Vacha Sadhustvautma Shloka Mata Kidrik Vidha Prabhu Bhaktistvai Upyojeta Kidrishi Sad Viradrita Etanme Purushadhyaksha Lokadhyaksha Jagat Prabhu Pranataya Anuraktaya Prapannaya Chakachatyatam. Shri Uddhav said, My dear Lord, the Supreme Personality of God, what type of person do you consider to be a true devotee? And what type of devotional service is approved by great devotees as worthy of being offered to your Lordship? My dear ruler of the universal controller, so Lord of Vaikuntha and Almighty God of the universe, I am your devotee, and because I love you, I have no other shelter than you. Please, therefore, explain this to me. See, Arjun in Mahabharata time, he was at the battlefield and he was completely confused about his duty, and he was going to fight the biggest battle of his life. So although he did ask wonderful questions, but he did not go too detailed into devotional service and what kind of devotee is a true devotee, this and that. But Uddhavji, his position is different. Although he was disturbed that all the Yadus are going to, the whole Yadu dynasty is going to be finished, and Krishna is going to unmanifest his pastime. But he's not in a battlefield as Arjun was. So he can ask all these deep questions. In the previous verse, it was stated that one can achieve the Lord's supreme abode by associating with devotees. Therefore, Uddhav naturally inquires about the symptoms of a distinguished devotee whose association can promote one to the kingdom of God. Srila Jiva Goswami notes that the personality of Godhead knows who is actually a sincere devotee because the Lord is always attached to his loving servitors. Similarly, pure devotees can expertly explain the proper methods of devotional service to Lord Krishna because they are already absorbed in love of Krishna. Uddhav herein requests Lord Krishna to describe the qualities of a devotee and asks the Lord to explain the devotional service that the devotees themselves approve as worthy to be offered to the Lord. Uddhav mentioned he is anuraktai, or completely bound in love to Lord Krishna. Because unlike other great devotees such as Arjuna, who sometimes worship demigods in order to comply with social customs or to show respect for their positions in the scheme of planetary management, Uddhav never worshipped any demigods. Therefore, Uddhav is Prapannaya, or completely surrendered to Lord Krishna. So he is asking that, I am completely surrendered now, you please tell me who's a pure devotee I can associate with. Tvam Brahma Paramama Vyoma Purusha Prakrite Paraha Avatirno Asi Bhagavan Svechopat Prithag Vapuhu. My dear Lord, as absolute truth, you are transcendental to material nature. And like the sky, you are never entangled in any way. Still being controlled by your devotee's love, you accept many different forms, incarnating according to your devotee's desires. Now, that's a very different question. You incarnate, or different comment, according to your devotee's desires. But obviously, devotees don't just desire that Krishna incarnate as a cup or a plate or something like that. No, whatever the original forms are, devotees' desires will be like that. Okay, you appear in this form. The pure devotees of the Lord propagate devotional service all over the world, and therefore, although separate from the personal forms of the Lord, they are considered to be manifestations of God's mercy and potency. The Lord is like the sky, Vyoma, because although expanded everywhere, he is not entangled in it. He is Prakriti Para, or completely transcendental to material nature. The Lord is fully satisfied and is therefore indifferent to the affairs of the material world. Still, because of his causeless mercy, the Lord desires to expand pure devotional service. And for this reason, he incarnates within the material world to uplift the fallen, conditioned souls. The Lord descends in selected spiritual bodies to please his loving devotees. Sometimes he appears in original form as Krishna, and even Krishna himself appears in different forms to special devotees so that they may fully develop their loving sentiments for him. Srila Jiva Goswami gives several examples of the Lord's special mercy upon his devotees. Lord Krishna personally went to the home of Jambavan, and they displayed a form with slightly angry glances. In that form, the Lord enjoyed a fight with his devotee. The Lord displayed his form as Dattatreya to Atri Muni, and similarly bestowed special mercy upon Lord Brahma, the demigods, Akrura, and innumerable other devotees. And in Vrindavan, the Lord displayed his most beautiful form as Govinda to the fortunate inhabitants. So that way he is saying that you appear according to the desires of your devotee. The Lord accepts different spiritual bodies according to the desire of his devotees. For example, the Lord agreed to become the son of Vasudeva and Devaki. Thus, although Lord Krishna has an eternal, blissful spiritual form, he appears to enter within the body of his devotee, who becomes his mother. Although we speak of the Lord taking on the body, the Lord does not change his form, as to the conditioned souls who must change their material bodies. The Lord appears in his own eternally unchangeable forms. Lord Hari always appears in the forms that are especially desired by his loving devotees and never in other forms. However, if one thinks that the Lord, in the manner of an ordinary person taking birth, becomes the physical son of Vasudeva or other devotees, then one is victimized by illusion. So he is not an ordinary person, he is not a conditioned soul, he is Supreme Personality of Godhead, but he appears in the form that his devotees desire to reciprocate completely with his devotees. That is his mercy. It's not like he's gonna, because he is the oldest, so he's the creator of all, he has to have a very old, rickety body with wrinkles all over and long flowing beard, white beard and long flowing hair, wearing white clothes and carrying a stick to walk. No, why? It's all misconceptions, speculations. Shri Bhagavan Vacha, Kripalur Akrit Drohas Titikshu Sarvadehinam Satyasaru Anvadyatma Samah Sarvopakaraka Kamer Hat Dhir Dantu Mridu Shuche Rakinchana Aniho Mit Bhokshanta Sthiro Macharno Muni Apramatto Gabhiratma Dhriti Manjit Shanguna Amani Manada Kalyo Matra Karunika Kavi Agya Yevam Gunan Dosha Maya Dishtan Apiswaka Dharman Santyajya Ya Sarvan Mam Bhajet Sa Uttamaha Sa Sattama. The Supreme Personality of Godhead. O Uddhav, a saintly person, means a devotee, because Uddhav's question was for the devotee. A saintly person is merciful and never injures others. Even if others are aggressive, he is tolerant and forgiving toward all living entities. His strength and meaning in life come from the truth itself. He is free from all envy and jealousy, and his mind is equal in material happiness and distress. Thus, he dedicates his time to working for the welfare of others. His intelligence is never bewildered by material desires, and he has controlled his senses. His behavior is always pleasing, never harsh, and always exemplary. And he is free from possessiveness. He never endeavors in ordinary worldly activities, and he strictly controls his eating. He therefore always remains peaceful and steady. The saintly person is thoughtful and accepts me as his only shelter. Such a person is very cautious in the execution of his duties and is never subject to superficial transformations. Because he is steady and noble, even in a distressing situation. He has conquered over the 6 material qualities, namely hunger, thirst, lamentation, illusion, old age, and death. So he has conquered over the 6 material qualities, even of death. Because for a devotee, he just changes his body. He knows he's changing his body. There's no such thing as death for the soul. He's free from all desire for prestige and offers honor to others. He is expert in reviving the Krishna consciousness of others and therefore never cheats anyone. Rather, he's a well-wishing friend to all, being most merciful. Such a saintly person must be considered the most learned of men. He perfectly understands that the ordinary religious duties prescribed by me in various Vedic scriptures possess favorable qualities that purify the performer, and he knows that neglect of such duties constitutes a discrepancy in one's life. Having taken complete shelter at my lotus feet, however, a saintly person ultimately renounces such ordinary religious duties and worships me alone. He is thus considered to be the best among all living entities. Wow. Looking at it, I don't even think I have 1% of any of these qualities. These are the qualities Krishna is looking for in a devotee. And long purport describing all the qualities. Verses 29 through 31 describe 28 qualities of a saintly person, and verse 32 explains the highest perfection of life. According to Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, the 17th quality, Mat Sharana, or taking complete shelter of Lord Krishna, is the most important. And the other 27 qualities automatically appear in one who has become a pure devotee of the Lord. So, number 1, Kripalu. A devotee cannot tolerate seeing the world merged in ignorance and suffering the whiplashes of Maya. Therefore, he busily engages in distributing Krishna consciousness and is called Kripalu, or merciful. Akrita Droha. Even if someone is offensive towards a devotee does not become offensive in return. Indeed, he never acts against the interest of any living entity. One may argue that great Vaishnava kings such as Maharaj Yudhishthira and Parikshit Maharaj executed many criminals. However, when justice is properly administered by the state, sinful, destructive persons actually benefit from the punishment because they become freed from the severe karmic reactions to their illicit activities. So he is Akrit Droha. A devotee never uses his mind, body, or words to perform any act harmful to the welfare of any living entity. Then Titikshu, a devotee forgives and forgets any offense against himself. A Vaishnava is personally detached from his material body, which is made of pus, stool, blood, and so on. Therefore, the devotee is able to overlook the obnoxious behavior he sometimes meets within the course of preaching work and always deals with people as a perfect gentleman. Wow. Satyasar, a devotee always remembers that he is the eternal servant of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is omniscient, the reservoir of all pleasure and the ultimate enjoyer of all activities. By avoiding activities outside devotional service, a devotee remains fixed in truth, does not uselessly waste time, and thus becomes bold, powerful, and steady. Anvadhyatma, devotee knows that the material world is a temporary phantasmagoria and therefore does not envy anyone in any material situation. He never tries to agitate others or criticize them unnecessarily. Sama, a devotee remains steady and equal in material happiness or distress, fame or infamy. His actual wealth is his consciousness of Krishna. And he understands that his real self-interest lies outside the scope of material nature. So he is Sama, he is equal always. Sarvopakaraka, neglecting one's selfish desires and working for the satisfaction of others is called Paropakar, whereas causing trouble to others is called Parapakar. A devotee always works for the pleasure of Lord Krishna, who is the resting place of all living entities. And thus a devotee's activities are ultimately pleasing to everyone. Kamer ahatadhi. Ordinary persons see all material things as objects for their personal gratification and thus try to acquire or control them. Ultimately, a man wants to possess a woman and enjoy sex gratification with her. But a devotee is never even thinking about this. A devotee, a pure devotee, is not bewildered by aroma or taste. He does not become attracted to sumptuous eating, nor does he spend the whole day making arrangements for bodily comfort. The only actual enjoyer of God's creation is the Lord himself, and the living entities are secondary enjoyers who experience unlimited pleasure through the Lord's pleasure. Danta, a devotee is naturally repelled by sinful activities and controls his senses by dedicating all his acts to Krishna. Mritu, a materialistic person will always see people as friends or enemies, and thus sometimes justify cruel or small-minded behavior in order to subdue his opponents. Since a devotee has taken shelter of Lord Krishna, he does not consider anyone his enemy and is never disturbed by the tendency to destroy or enjoy the suffering of others. Shuchi, a devotee never touches that which is impure or improper, and simply by remembering such a pure devotee, one is freed from the tendency to sin. Akinchana, a devotee is free from possessiveness and is not eager to enjoy or renounce anything, since he considers everything to be Lord Krishna's potency. Aniha, a devotee never acts on his own behalf, but rather for the service of Lord Krishna. He is therefore aloof from ordinary worldly affairs. Mitubhuk, a devotee accepts material sense objects only as far as necessary to keep himself healthy and fit in Lord Krishna's service. He is therefore not entangled by his sense activities and never injures his self-realization. So Mitubhuk is control over whether eating or anything that his senses require. It's full control. Shanta, those trying to exploit the Lord's creation are always disturbed. A devotee, however, is detached from such pointless activities and understands sense gratification to be diametrically opposite to his self-interest. Sthira, remembering that Lord Krishna is the basis of everything, a devotee does not become fearful or impatient. Means he has full faith in Krishna. Mata Sharan, a devotee does not take pleasure in anything except serving Lord Krishna and is constantly attentive in the execution of his devotee and in the execution of his duties. A devotee knows that only Lord Krishna can protect him and engage him in useful work. Muni, a devotee is thoughtful and through intelligent contemplation avoids becoming distracted from his spiritual advancement. Apramatta, one who forgets the Supreme Lord, is more or less crazy, but a devotee remains sane by offering his activities to Lord Krishna. Gabhiratma, as a devotee merges into the ocean of Krishna consciousness, his own consciousness becomes deeper and deeper. Dhritima, By controlling the urges of the tongue and genitals, the devotee remains steady and impatient and does not impulsively change his position. Jit Shad Guna. By spiritual knowledge, a devotee is able to conquer the pushings of hunger, thirst, lamentation, illusion, old age, and death. So this happens by spiritual knowledge. Amani. A devotee is not puffed up, and even if he is famous, he does not take such fame very seriously. Manada, devotee offers all respects to others, since everyone is part and parcel of Lord Krishna. Kalya, a devotee is expert in making people understand the truth of Krishna consciousness. Maitra, a devotee does not cheat anyone or by encouraging them in the worldly concept of life. Rather, by his missionary work, a devotee is a true friend of everyone. So cheating is not just cheating out of money or something else. Cheating is, for a devotee, for a preacher, is if he encourage them in bodily activity, so bodily concept of life. That is cheating. Karunika, devotee tries to make people sane, thus is most merciful. He is para dukkha dukhi, or one who is unhappy to see the unhappiness of others. And finally, Kavi, a devotee is expert in studying the transcendental qualities of Lord Krishna and is able to show the harmony and compatibility of Lord's apparently contradictory qualities. So this is possible only through expert knowledge of the absolute nature of the Lord. And devotee is Muni means expert. He knows, or he tries to learn, and then he knows by mercy of Krishna. So one who is always able to understand the truth of Krishna consciousness without opposition or confusion is called Kavi, or most learned. So these are wonderful qualities of a devotee. So many qualities are mentioned here. All over Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita, so many qualities are mentioned. But the most important quality that Jiva Goswami mentions, states there, that is a devotee takes complete shelter of Krishna. It's completely surrendered. And when one is completely surrendered, then all these qualities, these are all qualities of the spirit soul. This is not nothing new for spirit soul. But since we have forgotten our original position, so we don't have these qualities, or we have these qualities in very minute quantity. But when we take shelter of Krishna, then these qualities slowly they start displaying in ourselves. Gyatva gyatvat ye vaimam yavan yasyasmi yadrisha bhajanti ananya bhavena te me bhaktatama mataha. My devotees may or may not know exactly what I am, who I am, and how I exist. But if they worship me with unalloyed love, then I consider them to be the best of devotees. And if they worship me with love, then I give them as he says in Bhagavad Gita, I give them the understanding by which they come to me. They might not know me, but I can give them the understanding. According to Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, although Yavan indicates that Lord Krishna cannot be limited by time or space, he becomes limited by the love of his pure devotees. For example, Lord Krishna never steps 1 foot out of Vrindavan because of the intense love of its inhabitants for him. In this way, the Lord comes under the control of his devotees' love. The word Ya indicates that Krishna is the absolute truth who appears as the son of Vasudeva or as Shyam Sundar. But this is how love of devotees bind him, but he is completely independent. And that's what he says. Those who worship me with unalloyed love, I consider them the best of the devotees. Actually, the Supreme Lord Krishna is always independent, but he reciprocates the intense love of his devotees and thus appears to be dependent on them, just as he apparently became dependent on Nanda Maharaj and Yashoda Maya during his childhood pastimes in Vrindavan. And in fact, Arjun said in Bhagavad Gita, Sakheti matta prasabham yaduktam. I have in the past addressed you as, O Krishna, O Yadav, my friend, without knowing your glories. Please forgive whatever I may have done in the madness or in love. And this after he saw the universal form of Krishna. He lost all his composure. He said, Oh Krishna, please forgive me. But it was Krishna's love for his devotee Arjun. And Krishna has taken the position of a chariot driver for Arjun. How much love he has for his devotees. Although one may develop innumerable saintly qualities, without love of Krishna, one will not achieve complete success. One must understand the personality of Godhead as he is and love him. Even if one is not capable of analytically understanding the position of God, if one simply loves Krishna, then one is certainly perfect. Many of the residents of Vrindavan had no idea that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, nor did they know of Krishna's potencies or incarnations. They simply loved Krishna with their hearts and souls, and therefore they are considered most perfect. So that kind of perfection is what we need, what we want. And that is only possible by engaging in pure devotional service and begging Krishna to give us his service, to give us his love, to give us his bhakti. And not just Krishna, we are begging Srimati Radharani also, who's a reservoir of all this bhakti. And if she engages on us in her service and service of Krishna, then that's a perfection. That's all we need. Okay, I guess we can stop here and see anybody has any questions or comments. Okay, you all have a safe and wonderful day. Hare